At least I think I'm recording this. Yes,
Mhm.
we are. Okay. And then we're going to begin with a land acknowledgement, and then I'm going to hand it over to Jamie. So today we remember that we live on stolen land, indigenous land, where the Shawnee, Miami, Wyandot, and Delaware nations have lived for generations. We recognize the devastating consequences of colonization on these peoples and on this land. It's important that we do not mythologize these communities. When we do, we risk mythologizing and minimizing the harm of colonization. So instead, we recognize how Indigenous folks' past connect to their present. We honor the traditions, ways of living, and knowledge they've carried in this nation for generations. Jamie?
Thank you, Addie. So we are so excited to welcome you to the grand opening of Ohio State's very first Quiet Room. And so this has been made possible by the Graduate Association of Mental Health Action and Advocacy, or GAMHAA, the Disability Studies Program, the Disability Studies Graduate Student Association, or DSGSA, the English Department, and our community partner, MA Architects. I'm Jamie Uppahl. I'm GAMHAA secretary. I have light brown hair, glasses. I'm wearing a gray fleece pullover. And again, I just want to thank you for coming to our event. Today, we will hear from Dr. Margaret Price, the Associate Professor and Director of Disability Studies here at OSU, Hillary Degner and Melissa Guadron, the GAMHAA co-presidents, Bryan, Associate Senior Interior Designer at MA Architects, and to conclude, Alyssa Chrisman, the GAMHAA Vice President, will lead us in a guided meditation. As we said earlier about the Zoom access statement, we will have that captioned and up on our website in the near future, and we'll share that out. And we just want to say at this time, for you to enjoy this event and participate in any way that's accessible to you. So you can get up, move around, get something to eat, pet your dog or cat, talk to your housemates, and thank you for joining us.
This is Margaret Price. I'm doing a little bit of flaplause, which is a term that I believe was originated by M. Remy Yurgo, and just involves waving your hands if you're not into applauding by striking your hands together, or if, like a lot of us, you're just not really sure what your Zoom audio does anymore. I am so profoundly grateful to the many people who have worked to make the room in Denney Hall a reality. These include GAMHAA, the English Department, MA Architects, Herman Miller, DSGSA, and especially the individuals who've been working on this for more than a year and who have gone not just the extra mile, but many extra miles to see this project to fruition. My job today, besides to just flaplause a lot, is to say a little bit about the history of quiet rooms and why it's so important that GAMHAA has led this project. Quiet rooms have a long and important history in disability culture. They were first called to attention in the disability community about 20 years ago by the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network and others within disability circles. They circulated around issues such as the need to reduce noise at gatherings, such as conferences. However, it quickly became apparent that despite the name Quiet Room, the issue wasn't just reducing noise, it was also all kinds of sensory input. For example, fragrances, the presence of fluorescent or LED lighting, or contact with other people. These issues and others within the questions of access that are always circulating around us when we gather came to wider and wider attention through the early 2000s and the 2000 teens. Now, when these ideas first began circulating about 20 years ago, they did require some translation. It was common, for example, in say 2003 or 2004, to enter the so-called quiet room at a conference and discover that some eager conference goers had discovered it and were using it for a private meeting. Now, of course, the idea has gone mainstream. Quiet rooms, respite rooms, and similar kinds of spaces can be found in all kinds of spaces across the US and indeed the world. But even before the onset of this present pandemic, schools, companies, and other organizations had already begun to recognize the importance of quiet and low sensory spaces for everyone, not just for those who identified as or were marked as having disabilities. It's critical to recognize that quiet and respite rooms were invented by people for whom mental stress and illness are not inconveniences, occasional events, or something that happened because of a crisis like a pandemic, but rather an ordinary part of life. This is why I'm so happy that GAMHAA is the organization that first brought up this concept for Denney Hall, and why they gathered such an important such an important team of organizations, including MA, Herman Miller, DSGSA, and the Disability Studies Program to bring the project forward. In academia, as in most spaces in the United States, privacy and quiet are hallmarks of privilege. For example, as a tenured professor, I have a private office. I can close the door and have relative quiet and respite from eyes whenever I want to. Those same privileges are not available to many other people in Denney Hall. For example, graduate students, undergraduate students, non-tenure track faculty, and some staff. For that reason, GAMHAA envisions this as a space that cuts across lines of rank and position within Denney Hall, and indeed at OSU in general. OSU has other spaces that are supposed to be respite rooms, but as GAMHAA found through their research, these spaces are not always spaces that place the actual need for respite at their centers. Therefore, I'm especially excited to see the way that the ultimate manifestation of this space emerged through the collaboration between the many people and the many team members that worked on it. The Disability Studies Program is honored to partner with this remarkable team. Everyone working on this team has placed equity and shared well-being at the center of the project. I am personally honored to be a part of the project as well, because I have had a front row seat for the tremendous number of efforts, meetings, arrangements, figurings out, and just the sheer person power that was required to make this happen. I'm so grateful to everyone who's worked on this, and I'm so appreciative. Please join me in a hearty round of flapplause.
Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you so much, Margaret. Next, we would like to hear from MA Architect. Is that right? Am I going in the right order? No, sorry. That was a teaser. Next, we would like to hear from our GAMHAA co-presidents, Melissa and Hillary.
Hi, everyone. This is Hillary. So I'm going to hopefully share my screen. We'll see how that works out. Okay, is everyone able to see the slides?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so we will get started. So thank you so much for joining us today for this presentation, How to Get a Quiet Room in 3 Stages. We've included a link to our script in the chat if you'd like to read along as we talk. So if there's any issues with that, please just let me know, and I will try and troubleshoot that as we're talking.
So I am Melissa Guadron, and we have Hillary, who already spoke, Hillary Degner. We were co-presidents of GAMHAA in 2019. We're PhD students in the English Department's Rhetoric, Composition, and Literacy program. We specialize in disability studies with a focus on mental health, which is why we were initially drawn to GAMHAA. So we are excited to share with you the story of our quiet room. First, the idea came to us during a GAMHAA meeting when Hillary and I learned that there was a wellness room in the 18th Avenue Library, something we previously had no idea existed. So after the meeting, we all went down to the basement of the library where the wellness room is located to check it out. We were shocked by what we saw. The only thing separating the room from the adjacent study area was a glass wall that offered no privacy. The lighting was incredibly harsh, and other than 2 small couches, there weren't any places to sit down. We thought the room had a lot of potential, however, and decided to see how we could help.
As new co-presidents, Melissa and I thought it would be great to take on the project of improving the wellness room to better suit the needs of students. We reached out to our advisor, Dr. Price, who put us in contact with Jonna Keller from MA Architects. I emailed the wellness room coordinators a few times about a potential partnership. They thanked us for our suggestions, but they already had plans to improve the space. We were still all so excited about the idea of creating a quiet space for graduate students. So with MA still on board, Melissa and I approached the English department about creating a new space.
The quiet room is important because it honors rest. The Ohio State University is built for work. There are plenty of spaces tailored toward labor and socializing, but there aren't many spaces for private rest, like Margaret has already said. I've seen students curled up in uncomfortable positions all over campus, attempting to nap or to relax. To maintain our health and to be successful in all areas of life, we need to be able to recharge, and campus spaces should reflect this.
Graduate students and associated faculty have shared office spaces in the English department. So we wanted to provide space where there is no expectation to interact with each other. As disability studies scholars, we wanted to be intentional about creating an accessible space, since so much of academia is not designed considering disabled bodies and neurodiverse minds. As someone with generalized anxiety disorder, I was personally invested in this project because I oftentimes need a quiet space to calm my anxious thoughts. As we were working on this project, I experienced the sudden loss of a very close friend. My dad was ill for most of 2019, and then he died last November at the age of 56 from complications with C. diff. The quiet room would have been a great place for me to go to when I needed to rest and recharge with everything that was going on in my life. So now we want to talk a little bit about our second stage, which is advocacy. We met with some staff in the English department to pitch the idea of the quiet room. We didn't have to persuade them, though, about why it mattered. They were interested in the project right away, which was great. We really just had to figure out how and when this would all happen. We had a lot of conversations about how the space would be used. Should students work in the space? Can meetings be held there? Did the room need to be reserved to be used? We considered all of these questions and many more very carefully. Throughout the whole process, we advocated to maintain the primary purpose of the room, a space for students and faculty to relax and be quiet.
Early on, it became apparent that our best shot at having our plan fully realized within the next 2 or 3 years would mean converting one of the grad offices. Otherwise, it would take even longer for it to happen. So this meant that we would need to ask current occupants to vacate the room. We're looking at Denney Hall 507. So space is very precious to grad students, and because this project was a work of advocacy for graduate students by graduate students, Hillary and I struggled with the idea of displacing our peers. Thankfully, along with Kathleen Griffin's help, we were able to reserve space in the brand new grad offices being finalized on the 4th floor of Denney Hall. Only once we were assured our peers were supportive of the quiet room and okay with relocating did we finalize our plans for converting the office. And we are just so incredibly grateful to those students. Originally, we imagined the space for just grad students, but as we talked more with Dr. Price, we realized that associated faculty are affected just as we are. Undergrads, for the most part, can go back to their dorms, but grad students and associated faculty spend countless hours on campus. So as of now, we are very happy to say that all English grad students and all English associated faculty have access to the room via their Buck IDs, and others can request access.
So we won't go into all the details about each step that we went through to get funding for this project, because that could be its own presentation. But we did have a few plans that fell through. We just kept trying and it all ended up working out. We're really grateful to everyone who helped us make the funding happen for the Quiet Room.
And as I said before, this is a space for graduate students by graduate students. The idea started out that way. So throughout the entire process, Hillary and I were careful to consult our peers and to take their thoughts seriously and their suggestions seriously. Once the English department was on board, Kathleen Griffin, Megan Lemming, and especially Wayne Lovely put so much time and labor into helping us clean out the room, move all the furniture and items, and put in and oversee work orders.
We talked with our GAMHAA team, Alyssa Chrisman and Addison Conable, regularly to create a list of rules for the space. We felt like it was necessary to be very clear from the start about the purpose of this room and how it should and should not be used.
Addison and I emailed back and forth with Madeline Conkle from the English communications team until we had designs that were accessible and great looking. So here's a sneak peek at the posters we made with Madeline. The poster on the left will be eventually placed outside of the quiet room. On it, folks can see answers to questions such as, what is this space for? What do I need to know before I enter? And how do I enter this space? The poster on the right will eventually be placed inside of the room. On that poster, folks can see the rules of the room.
So these are a few before pictures of the quiet room space when it was still being used as a graduate student office. There are quite a few different pieces of furniture that you'll notice. So there are several desks, chairs, short and tall bookshelves, a small couch, and a microwave. Everything is placed very close together as well. We walked by this office quite a few times to scope out the space, and I'm sure the graduate students were confused about our interest in their office. And then it all finally made sense to them once we finally emailed them about the quiet room.
Stage 3 focused on design and installation. This is when everything started to really feel real. MA and Continental Office worked together to create wonderful schematics of the room, making sure to consult us throughout the process. We would then discuss the plans not only amongst GAMHAA members, but again with other grad students. Throughout the process, the entire team strove toward creating a room that was accessible to everyone. We're so thankful to have worked with great folks like Bryan, Samantha Dickerson, Ingrid Dent, Lisa Welch, and Heather Muller, who dedicated their time and labor to the project.
These are the plans we received from MA. Up until this point, our ideas had all been communicated through meetings and emails, so it was really exciting to see this project come to life. MA asked us to pick which plan we liked best and offer feedback. They were so generous to welcome our feedback and make a few changes to make sure the space was accessible and best utilized. The top images show different seating options with different divider panels to choose from. The plan on the left is titled Floor Plan Option 2, and the plan on the right is Floor Plan Option 1. Option 2 has a larger work counter, and Option 1 has a smaller work counter. We chose Option 1, but decided to take the work counter out altogether to make room for more comfortable seating.
And then the pandemic happened. It was surreal to continue the process away from campus, but MA and Continental Office didn't miss a beat. At one point, when the university froze funding, we needed to provide additional justification for releasing the funds to support the room, and were successful. We wish we were holding this opening in person with all of you, but safety and health comes first. However, we recognize OSU's goal to provide students with continued immersive face-to-face experiences, which only makes the quiet room all the more important. The aim of the room is to address our needs when we are vulnerable, and so the need for it increases as threats to our physical health and mental well-being are being exacerbated by COVID-19. So for now, we just ask that folks are patient with us as we adjust the guidelines of the room to make sure we have safe use. And then I'm going to talk about these pictures very briefly because Mark will talk about them more. So in order to show you the evolution of the room, we want to offer these pictures as a brief sneak peek of Mark's presentation, which will follow ours. I just want to say it was amazing to enter the room and to see the new calming blue walls paired with the brand new furniture.
Melissa and I are really lucky that we came into our PhD program with such a supportive cohort. So we use that energy and their input to advocate for something that would help all of us. Sometimes at such a large university, it can feel impossible to make a significant impact on the community. However, we were happy to find so much encouragement and help. All we had to do was ask faculty, staff, and our community partners were there to support us. We also want to emphasize again how wonderful our advisor, Dr. Price, has been throughout this whole project.
Throughout the process, it was tempting to allow work in the quiet room or to offer it as a multi-purpose room. And it just goes to show how self-care can be an act of resistance against our always on the go world. At different points throughout the journey, we've had to rethink our plans, but we've learned not to be discouraged by setbacks. If you persist and you have a great team like we did, know that you can reach your goals. And finally, just as body minds are always in flux, we realize that the room will need to change. We're ready to continue taking feedback and integrating it into the design of the room so that it can be a safe haven for all those who need it.
So now we can celebrate the grand opening of the quiet room.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa and Hillary. How exciting. And now we get to hear from MA Architects. Thank you, Mark.
Sorry, that's my bad. Can everyone see my screen? Can I hear someone say yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna hit play for real now.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bryan. I am an associate and senior interior designer with MA Architects here in Columbus, Ohio. I'm also a certified futurist and leader of our research and innovation team. And we have been doing a lot of research recently on mental health and mental well-being. And that research has really centered around trying to figure out ways that we can reduce stress and anxiety. Our belief at MA Architects is that we want to enrich lives through innovative design. And so we came up with an entirely new concept called a respite room. And that respite room is really meant to calm you down from the most hyper-aroused state of a panic attack down to a much more lowered, calm state in under 30 minutes. And so with that, we've been implementing those across all of our sectors and platforms. And we're actually proud and excited to talk to you today about the next evolution, which is the quiet room. In conjunction with our research, we've been working with the Ohio State University, clinical psychologists, yoga instructors, even taking courses online about mindfulness. And so this quiet room is really the next evolution, because where the respite room is meant to be about a singular person use, the quiet room is for communal space, which is just as important when you're thinking about mental health and mental well-being and social connection. And so with the Ohio State University's Disability Studies Program and GAMHAA, the Graduate Association of Mental Health Action and Advocacy Program, they came to us and said that they needed a space here at Denney Hall. They needed a space where faculty, staff, and graduate students can come and take a break, where they can get away, not work per se, but where they can just have a moment to have quiet and calm. And so with that, we worked with them to develop the Denney Hall Quiet Room. And as you'll see, we're getting ready to take a tour. It really is a space meant to take a break. We're hoping that you won't bring your laptop in there. We're hoping that you won't really have a conversation per se. It's just meant to be a space to be quiet and to be in communal, where you can maybe kick up your feet, take a couple of minutes for yourself, recharge, build some resiliency, and then go about your day. Welcome again, everybody, to the Ohio State University's Denney Hall Quiet Room. I'm excited to give you a walkthrough of the space. I'm going to give you a little bit of a tour. It's still a little bit in progress, but I figured this way you could at least see the zones of the space and understand how you might start to be able to think about using it. So come on in. So the first thing that you'll notice when you walk in is we've got, again, different zones within the room. We want to provide choice for people depending on what their needs are. This is going to be a shelf here that's going to be filled with a bunch of different activity books and STEM tools and all the things that you could use to like help calm your mind. You can see that we are already ready with our Sandy wipes to help from a cleanliness standpoint. I want to emphasize that all of the furniture was specified and designed with materials that could be easily cleaned too. So when you come in, you can see we've got this space pretty simple. And the reason for that is we didn't want to put a lot of pattern into the space. We know that that can affect many different people with visual disabilities. Not only that, but just from like a cognitive standpoint, we wanted to keep things simple and calm. So we're going to pan around over here. So over here, you're going to have two furniture groupings. So our first one we've got over here, and it's just a simple sofa. There's going to be a nice high table over here where if you wanted to, you could bring a book, you could set it down, you could hang out. We had different body postures in mind when we designed the space and when we design our respite room areas, and especially with this quiet room, so that it could be a space where two people can come, they can still sit by side, obviously during much safer times when you can be much closer to each other. But here's also a spot where you might be able to just kick up your feet and relax too. Over here will be another one of those benches, which unfortunately is not here right now, but just to give you an idea, there are going to be those zones here. And then pivoting around, we've got this nice little nook area back here. And we did start to include some different lighting opportunities as well as different furniture groupings. And the big thing when it comes to furniture is that choice. So we've got the choice to sit down, we've got the choice to prop our feet up, we've got the choice to just maybe move that ottoman out and have it as a place where you can set something if you're reading or other materials. Lighting, so while we couldn't affect the lighting, we wanted to give some lighting options and some varied lighting, which makes it feel much more residential. And that's the thing you'll notice about a lot of the fabrics that we chose for this project, was that they do have more of a residential feel. And that's also to provide some comfort, as well as just to provide a little bit of a more elevated space. Winging on back around, we have another grouping option here. And the great thing about this furniture grouping option here is that you have these little wings to it, which will help provide some acoustic separation to it. It's not going to be perfect, but like we said, we want this to be a quiet space where it's not really too much about talking. It's just more about being in communal space with one another. We have a bunch of different variety of these laptop desks that can slide in and underneath the ottoman or couch just as well as you need it to be. And then you can just sit back and simply relax. It's a really great piece. And like I said, these wings will help prevent from some sight blockage, but also acoustic blockage as well too. So they will help absorb the noise going in and around the space. And then our last grouping is back here. And we've only got one right now. There's going to be a second one that's also going to follow that's similar suit with another panel to help divide the space. But again, most of this furniture is all designed with comfort and ease and durability in mind. It all was provided by Continental Office, the furniture dealer here in Columbus, Ohio. And a lot of it was actually selected furniture pieces from either office or healthcare or even mother's rooms that provide that support and stability for this variety of functions. So you can see here, we've got another one which has a headrest to it. So it's just nice, and it's got a headrest which is ergonomically designed to like fit the body and help support the back. So we try to take as much of that into consideration as possible. Again, you'll notice that the fabric is pretty simple, pretty monochromatic. We did provide a little bit of texture to it just to provide interest. But again, we were not trying to do a ton of pattern. We wanted to keep this space simple and calm to help everybody depending on what their need is that day. So I hope you enjoy this space. I can't tell you how excited I am to hear anecdotally the things that are happening, and hopefully how it helps your staff, and hopefully how it inspires others to remember to take a break, because taking a break is really important for us all, especially when we're thinking about our mental health. So with that, best of wishes, and looking forward to seeing what happens here at Denney Hall with the Quiet Room.
Yay. Thank you so much, Mark.
My pleasure.
Thank you. We will now have a brief question period. If anyone has anything they'd like to ask anyone involved with planning and creating the room.
This isn't a question, but I just want to say like how impressed I am. Like I remember when you guys first presented this idea when we were all just hanging out in the office one day, and I can't believe, like, even with the pandemic, how quickly you all got it done and how amazing it looks. So congratulations.
Thank you, Allison. It feels a little mind-blowing.
Yeah, thank you so much. We remember how much we talked to you about it, and you gave us a lot of feedback. So that was really exciting.
Thanks, miss chatting with you all.
I have a question. This is Margaret. Is anyone from Continental office here? If not, I'm going to ask the MA people.
I don't believe that they are, so you can ask me.
So yes, to Mark, can you talk a little bit more about what inspires maybe MA in particular, but maybe also for-profit organizations or designers to undertake projects of social equity like this? I think one thing that just really struck me as we went through the project was just how much time and expertise was being donated by MA and just like the members of GAMHAA, when I saw the schematics, which I don't even know if I'm using the right word for those, the plans. And as you all were going through the revision process, I was just thinking, nobody in academia gets this kind of service. Like, we are not used to it. Space in academia is a really specific thing. I mean, I say that as a researcher who specializes in academic space, but it was such a different experience to be working with a professional who was like, we are just doing this to help make the world a better place. So I would just be really interested to hear more about, again, I don't really know if that's like MA in particular or the design profession, but it's something that really struck me and I'd love to hear more about.
Well, thank you for the question. Yeah, I think what I will say, I'll speak from MA's perspective and from my perspective, so I don't lump all of architecture and design in together. But I will say at MA, we have a very core belief. I said it in the little video of the tour where we believe in enriching lives through innovative design. And it's the enriching lives part that really strikes home to a lot of us. MA has 3 corporate social responsibility platforms that we support, those being Dress for Success, A Kid Again, and then Habitat for Humanity, where they actually give us volunteer hours to go and volunteer with those organizations, because a lot of us who get into design, we do it because we want to make a difference in the world. And so it's these little, we call them passion projects, that make it all worthwhile, right? It's not about an award. It's not about doing something that, gets recognition. It's about making sure that we've had an impact on others, and we've done it in a way that is actually through evidence-based design. And that's one of the things that I know I'm very passionate about. Margaret, thank you for sharing all the history of the respite room and the quiet rooms and everything like that. We say we design it in a way that because we've infused new things into it, right? So we've created something that's not really typical in our industry. A lot of people don't talk about respite. They don't talk about resiliency. And about, my gosh, I want to say like 3 or 4 years ago, the World Health Organization published that depression was going to be the #1 healthcare concern by 2030. And that really spurred on a lot of conversation that happened about what we can do to help relieve anxiety and stress in the workplace specifically. And so that led to our respite room. So we did a lot of research into color psychology and the psychology of architecture and what affects the mind from creating more anxious states to more relaxed states. And so, I mean, I could talk about that for an entire hour. We have an entire presentation, but suffice it to say is that, we believe in giving back. And so we were just very glad that we could, like I said, make this part of our evolution. So that way we can say, hey, we've got this individual room, but now we've got this idea of how we can start building a more communal space that does very similar things.
Thank you.
I have a question, another question for Mark. I think during your video, I heard you say you're a certified futurist. What on earth is that?
Yes, I am. So basically, a futurist is somebody who uses foresight in order to help companies, businesses, spaces strategize on what the potential avenues of a future could look like. It usually centers around a specific question. There are actual degrees in futurism you can get that are very scientifically based. Mine is from an institute out in California that's been around for about 50 years that what we do is we gather what we call signals and drivers. So the drivers are the big forces at work, and then the signals are the little minute things that are happening that we then look at and pull together to talk about, okay, if X is true, here's what could potentially happen 5 to 10 years down the road. So it's very much, we just did it with our company to think about how we could be more anti-fragile, which led to new potential offerings, new business strategies. We're working with a retail client on the future of like what their store could look like. So it really just, it runs the gamut. But it was something that we were doing trend forecasting beforehand, but this just gave us more of like a codified way to incorporate that into our practice and a little bit of a differentiator between us and other firms in this area.
That's pretty wacky, but pretty cool.
Well, so one of my favorite quotes is that any statement about the future should at first seem ridiculous. And it makes sense because when I went to the Institute, they basically said, and this is so off topic, sorry, but they basically said, if you think about yourself, a part of your brain lights up. If you think about yourself in the future, the part of your brain that thinks of strangers lights up. So basically you think of yourself as in the future as a stranger. So it seems hard for people to picture that. So that's what I help bridge that gap.
Cool, thank you.
So it looks like Margaret asked a question in the chat, and anyone can feel free to do so if you don't want to talk. So she said, I have a question for the graduate students here. What are some other ways that you see grad students working communally to support each other? And one of the ways that I see this happening is just in a simple group text, which I think pre-pandemic was really annoying, but now we appreciate them. So I have a group text going with Jamie and Melissa who are here, and we check in with each other pretty much every day, sometimes every other day. And those check-ins are just so nice. It's so nice to know that someone's thinking of you. So I think it can just be as simple as a text to the people that you care about.
And this is Melissa. I'd add that I definitely see a lot of grad students banding together to create opportunity for each other. This is that I've talked about this with a couple of folks about some of our professional development opportunities are frozen or stalled or have been taken away because of the pandemic. And I'm really proud of the way that we have thought about ways to provide those professional development opportunities amongst each other, just brainstorming ideas of like guest teaching each other's classes or coming into GAMHAA and telling me like, what do you want to do in GAMHAA that will help you in your career? Like, you want to be involved in the Gamma Ray, editing our newsletter? Do you want to be involved more in planning of the quiet room? Just really making those spaces and those opportunities appear and be reachable for each other. And then I believe, Susan, you had a question.
I wanted to congratulate everybody on this. I think it's long overdue to have a respite room on campus. A lot of the students are stressed out with deadlines that they have, as well as, you know, personal things going on in their lives. So I think this is a great place for them to go and, you know, get some peace and quiet. And I also wanted to ask Mark a question. It's good to see you again, by the way. The question that I have is, I did not see things like plants and things like that that are related to nature. And my own research was looking at biophilia and how that actually can be used, you know, to help with attention restoration and things like that, which, you know, would directly affect students. Was that part of your research as well?
Hey, how's it going? So Susan and I used to work together, so that's why this is really strange. I didn't know she was gonna be on this call. So hey, so yes, absolutely. Biophilia is extremely important. I mean, body positioning is one of the categories for biophilia or for biophilia. So we try to incorporate wood. So having wood grain is also something that helps calm the central nervous system by staring at wood grain. We did have conversations about like other plants and other things and other greenery in there too, but obviously that's, I think, something that's going to be left up to the graduate students to implement and maintain. So I think that's the hopeful. I mean, the blue color in essence is also a reason, you know, we used the OSU's secondary brand palette, but we chose blue specifically so it would be more of a biophilic color. So we tried to incorporate it where possible, given the constraints that we had.
This is Melissa. I would just like to add that the room unfortunately doesn't have any natural sunlight or any windows that are exposed to the outside. It's a center room in the middle of the building. But we will be working with our consultants such as Kira Hambrick, plant expert, to figure out what plants we can come into the room or have in the room. And we actually in the planning stage definitely consulted what kind of plants could actually stay in here, but it's very important to us.
Thank you.
I just have to say your timing is amazing, because I was just typing in the chat, like, I have all kinds of plants and I'm happy to propagate or donate. So yeah, I would be happy to help with that.
Thank you.
I think that's something we would also want to check in with everyone who uses the space about as well, because just making sure that allergies aren't an issue with like mold growing on plants sometimes, or even the fragrances. So I think that's something I never really thought of in the past. They're so pleasant to look at, and it's nice to care for something living in that way, but that might actually deter some people from that space. So we would want to kind of check in with everybody about how they feel about that.
Speaking of furnishings, this is Margaret speaking again. I just put a question in the chat for GAMHAA folks, which is, I know you are really thoughtful about other items that might be added to the space to help sort of nudge us toward rest, as opposed to, you know, oh, let me check my email again, or whatever kinds of things I typically do when I enter a quiet space. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about those.
Yeah, this is Melissa. I'd be happy to. So our excellent partners helped donate a lot of items that were not furniture. So MA and the disabilities programs both gave us funds and donated extra items to us. So MA has donated, and Hillary, you might have to check this list with me. We have a weighted blanket. We have a noise canceling machine, a salt lamp, which Hillary can explain what that means, because Den and I have been wondering, but we know it's good. And then a sun/happy lamp, because again, we don't have that actual natural sunlight. And then from the Disability Studies program, we have coloring books, Zen Doodle, like calming books. We have literature that focuses on just sitting and relaxing and being retrospective. And then we have a couple of like very calming graphic novels that we'll have in there. And then we will continue to consider input from everyone who uses the space to let us know what other items they could have in there to help them relax and be calm.
And we're going to keep the weighted blanket out of the space for now because of the pandemic. But I think in the future, that's something we'll definitely want to incorporate. And we've had conversations about how we can make sure that we regularly clean it as well, so people are comfortable using it. Did a quick Google to refresh my memory, because I mostly just like kind of like the warm glow that they provide. And I got into salt lamps actually from my dad. He loved them. So now whenever I turn it on, it makes me think of him. But I know that he was all about how it was supposed to balance like the energy in the room and kind of cleanse the space. And I think there are a lot of other benefits as well. So maybe that's something we could have a printout, just kind of a info sheet on letting people know why that hunk of salt is in the room with a light in it, so that people understand why they're turning it on, other than just for it to look nice.
Alyssa has written in the chat about our Buddha board, which is also a device that lets you draw and paint. I haven't used one, but it's sort of like an Etch-a-Sketch, right? Yes. If there aren't any other questions at this time, we want to conclude with the meditation that Alyssa Chrisman is going to guide for us. And yeah, I see she's turned her camera on. Thank you.
All right. Hi, everyone. So this meditation actually is from a book by Thich Nhat Hanh called How to Relax. And I'm holding it in my hand right here. You can see it's pretty tiny, about the size of my hand. And this is actually one of the things that will be available for students in the room, maybe post-COVID, since you can't really clean a book too easily. But this book has a lot of like small meditations or things that you can read in it. So this meditation is adapted from this book, How to Relax. Please participate in this meditation as you are willing and able. And this guided meditation should be adapted to your specific needs and circumstances. So Thich Nhat Hanh says that you don't need to set aside special time for resting and relaxing. You don't need a special pillow or fancy equipment. You don't need a whole hour. In fact, right now is a very good time to relax. Ideally, you will be in a space where you will not be disturbed, but with practice, you can find quiet even in the noisiest of places. So try sitting upright in a comfortable, stable position where you feel fully supported and your back, neck, and head are straight. Or you might lie down on your back in a comfortable place with some support under your knees. Make sure you're warm. You might want to get a sweater or a blanket if the room is cool. Loosen any restrictive clothing that would prevent you from breathing comfortably. You are hopefully breathing in and out right at this moment. If you can close your eyes for a moment, do so. But if not, try gazing softly 6 to 12 feet ahead of you. This will help you pay attention to your breath. Your body is doing so many things right now. Your heart is beating. Your lungs are inhaling and exhaling air. Blood is traveling through your veins. Without effort, your body is both working and relaxed. Deep relaxation is an opportunity for your body to rest, heal, and be restored. You bring attention to each part of your body: hair, scalp, brain, ears, neck, shoulders, arms, hands, fingers, lungs, each of the internal organs, the digestive system, pelvis, legs, feet, toes. You send your love and care to every part of your body and every cell. So in your comfortable position, allow your body to relax. Be aware of the surface beneath you and the contact of your body with that surface. Allow your body to sink into the surface. Become aware of your breathing in and out. Be aware of your abdomen rising and falling as you breathe in and out. You might even place a hand on your stomach to feel that motion. Breathing in, bring awareness to your eyes. Breathing out, allow your eyes to relax. Allow your eyes to sink back into your head. Let go of the tension in all the tiny muscles around your eyes. Your eyes allow you to see a paradise of forms and colors. Allow your eyes to rest. Send love and gratitude to your eyes. Breathing in, bring your awareness to your mouth. Breathing out, allow your mouth to relax. Release the tension around your mouth. Your lips are the petals of a flower. Let a gentle smile bloom on your lips. Smiling releases the tension in the hundreds of muscles in your face. Feel the tension release in your cheeks, your jaw, and your throat. Breathing in, bring your awareness to your shoulders. Breathing out, allow your shoulders to relax. Let them sink into the floor. Let all the accumulated tension flow into the floor. You carry so much with your shoulders. Now let your shoulders relax as you care for them. Breathing in, become aware of your arms. Breathing out, relax your arms. Let your arms sink into the floor. Relax your upper arms, your elbows, your lower arms, your wrist, your hands, and all the tiny muscles in your fingers. Move your fingers a little if you need to, helping the muscles relax. Breathing in, bring your awareness to your heart. Breathing out, allow your heart to relax. You have neglected your heart for a long time, and you cause your heart stress from the ways we work, eat, and manage anxiety and stress. Your heart beats for you night and day. Embrace your heart with mindfulness and tenderness, reconciling and taking care of your heart. Breathing in, bring your awareness to your legs. Breathing out, allow your legs to relax. Release all the tension in your legs, your thighs, your knees, your calves, your ankles, your feet, your toes, and all the tiny muscles in your toes. You may want to move your toes a little to help them relax. Send your love and care to your toes. Breathing in, breathing out. Your whole body feels as light as a lily floating on the water. You have nowhere to go, nothing to do. You are free as a cloud floating in the sky. Bring your awareness back to your breathing, to your abdomen rising and falling. Follow your breath for a minute. If it helps, you might want to try the 4-7-8 strategy, which is where you inhale for 4 counts, hold the breath for 7 counts, and exhale for 8 counts. I'll lead you in a few counts and then I'll have you breathe for a little bit on your own and let you know when it's time to finish. So inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Continue to follow your breath for a minute, and I will let you know when it is time to finish. As we come back together, become aware of your body. You may want to gently move your body, starting with your fingers and toes. You might circle your wrists or your ankles. As you bring more movement to the body, you may want to stretch or even stand. Once you feel back into the space, bring your hands to your heart and take a second to give yourself some gratitude for taking the time to relax and be quiet. Now send some gratitude out to the people who shared this practice with you. And finally, send the gratitude even further out, sending this feeling of peace and quiet to the greater world. Thank you for sharing this moment of peace with me, you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Alyssa.
I think that's all we have. We're also relaxed now. We're just like,
Thank you so much, everyone. You should have access to the quiet room now since you've sent us your email. So we'll have you registered with your Buck ID. If you have any questions, you can email us. That's, I think it's gamma.osu@gmail.com. And we will I will write that in the, oh, thank you, Margaret, for adding that to the chat. But thank you so much, everyone. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.